Well, hi Lauren, it's good to have you back for another session, and it's good to see you again. Last week we talked about a lot of things, and you really opened up about your experience with your dad in your childhood, and how that played a lot of played a big role in how you view yourself and your accomplishments in life. And I noticed last week that a lot of what you view about yourself negatively might be overinflated a bit. You mentioned being in certain activities and not completing them to what you deem the fullest measure of your ability, and because of that they are, for lack of better words, failures. And I challenged you in your thinking on that, and one of the things I suggested, and I hope that you did, was to spend some time this week, as time allowed, and write down some things that you view as accomplishments and some things that you view as failures, and to see if you, after reviewing that, found that maybe you were a little hard on yourself. Maybe your accomplishments were probably very legitimate, but I'm wondering if your failures, or what you deem to be failures, were maybe exaggerated somewhat. So I want to give you a moment to look, or to review back with me what you did and the homework assignment, and what'd you find? How'd that list go for you?
Well, I think that, I mean, when I wrote everything out, you know, the things I think were failures, or that, you know, I gave examples last week of like not staying in chorale for 4 years.
Sure.
In college, just music group.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I write that on paper, it seems like, well, who cares? It's just choir.
Yeah.
And no one else would think that it's, you know, you have to stay in 4 years to say that you were part of it. But I feel like I've just always had that all or nothing personality. It's either you're in or you're not in. You do it or you don't, and you don't start anything you don't finish. So I think of those things in my mind as failures, but when I write them on paper, it does look a little harsh.
Sure. Kind of brings it into focus a little bit more succinctly.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Well, I'm curious. Is there one negative or aspect of a failure that you can share with me that maybe you thought was really, after reviewing it, over-exaggerated?
Well, I mean, the one I just shared with you, like I said, when I wrote it on paper, seemed stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know, they all kind of seemed, I don't think there was any one that seemed more exaggerated than the other, you know, but I still, even though I did that, I still felt shameful even writing them down. Like,
sure.
Like there was just like writing it down was another confirmation that I had failed, like in the failed category. It was almost like further confirmation that I had not done it, or had not completed, or not measured up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think I got the point in that it you know, it makes it look kind of silly to have such a strong opinion about things that aren't so big a deal, but at the same time, writing them down was still kind of made me feel like I failed.
Yeah. How did your list compare? Was your the category for positive completions and achievements, was it longer than the negatives, or were the negatives longer than the positives?
No, the positives were longer than the negatives, and you had said too. You had said not to just talk academically. So I put down things like, you know, I don't know if you say accomplishment, but, you know, that I found the person I was going to marry, and that I got married, and that, you know, I've always been able to work. I've always had a job. I have 3 healthy, beautiful children.
Sure.
You know, I pay my bills on time. You know, I don't know, you said to kind of think other than academics, so I try to think of other things too.
Yeah, and I suggested that because I think a lot of what you perceive as failures are based in the academic world, because your dad was so focused on your academics
Yeah.
that sometimes when we start looking at ourselves, we tend to see ourselves in one negative light. And in your case, it's academic. For other people, it may be social or whatever the case may be. And I was hoping that you would see that you're a very successful person. And sometimes when you write out that list and you see it written there, right there in black and white, it makes it more real, and you can see maybe just how things were exaggerated. So I hope that what you gathered from last week, or from the homework assignment rather, is just how your views may be slanted in the negative, and I'm hoping that you can reevaluate your perception of yourself, because you have a lot to offer people, and you have a lot of accomplishments that you've done quite well, and what you perceived as failures to some people may be accomplishments. And so those are some important things to consider. But what I want to do now, as we plan for the next session, are to give you some goals to work towards. Now I want to compliment you and congratulate you on a job well done with the homework assignment. That's hard to do. It's not easy to write down your accomplishments and your failures. It's easier to do the accomplishments, obviously, but when you have to take a hard-line look at your failures, that's when things get pretty difficult for people. So good job on that. But now we're going to start setting some goals for you. And I think a healthy goal for you would be to start cognitively considering all the negative thoughts about yourself and tackling them as they pop into your head. And what I mean by that is, as you go through your week, this following week, capture each thought that when you're in the moment and you're dealing with a situation and you're tempted to think negatively about yourself, I want you to stop, pull back, and take a look at the circumstances and see if you're exaggerating those circumstances. And then reapproach that circumstance and view it in a positive light. Now it's going to be hard at first because you have to really retrain your thinking in this matter. But I know you can do this. One thing that I would encourage you to do in this goal, and it's going to feel like another homework assignment, and it is somewhat, I want you to keep a journal this week. As you're able to, you might want to keep a little pocket flip book or a little whatever, but I want you to keep it with you on your person, so that as these negative thoughts come into your mind, I want you to write down the negative thought first, and then I want you to, again, take a step back and look at it through a positive lens. And my hope is that when we come back next week, you'll have real-time contrasted comparison that you can look at and say, wow, this is how I was tempted to think, but this is the reality right here. Do you think you can do that?
I think I could.
Okay, all right. So now tell me, so we make sure we're on the same page here, what are you going to do this week?
Well, you said that when I am faced with a situation and I feel the temptation to take on a negative thought about myself, that I write down the negative thought and then take a step back and then try to take a look at what's really going on and the reality of the situation and look at it through a positive lens.
Exactly.
And then write down what's really happening and not just what I seem to think in the negative light.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's exactly right. Because I'll tell you what happens a lot of times. People throughout their life, they build up this this false image of themselves in a negative light, and that becomes almost like rock built on top of yourself. And we have to chip away at that rock to get down to who you really are, which is a very positive, successful person. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to see that through this, through these goals that we're setting and this homework assignment, through the journals that we're doing. Sound good?
Okay.
All right, great. Well, we'll see you next week.
Okay.